So lush, so full of life, of colour, so fresh. We should never take spring for granted. If it weren't for the slight tilt on our Earth's rotational axis, the sun would not rise earlier and set later. And maybe, bunnies would never nibble buttercups. So let's get ready to watch the simple joys of nature, an explosion of fabulous wildlife. Sit back and brace yourself for Springwatch. Hello and welcome to Springwatch 2024, and the sun is shining.
Hooray!
Oh, what a good
Something to
start. What a
celebrate.
good start that is. Sunning on the beautiful RSPB reserve down here at Arne on the south coast. We're going to be here for the next 3 weeks. We're going to be live. Our mission as ever is to bring you the very best of the UK's spring wildlife. No election. Absolutely no mention of it. I'm ashamed that I've mentioned it in the first place. I shouldn't have mentioned the fact that we're not going to mention the election for 3 weeks. We're going to focus on that wildlife, and to help us, we've got all sorts of other things, some music, some art, the biggest rig ever when it comes to our live nest, and of course, lots of new science. And in fact, today, at the age of 33, I learned a new word, foracy. Foracy, what about that? Explanation coming later. And then, I've got to tell you, this is very, very exciting. I can barely contain myself. We have filmed something that we think is new to science. We're still checking that. It could be new to science, and what's more, it's been happening in all of our back garden ponds, right under our noses, and we didn't notice it. More of that coming up later in the week.
Can I just pick you up on something? Did you say at the age of 33?
No, I said 63.
I think you said 33.
I'd never lie about my age. I have no such need.
Anyway, we like to think of Springwatch as a family, and of course you guys are so important as part of that family, and we love it when you get involved by sending in pictures and comments, and you've already been sending in some glorious spring photographs. Look at that. I love the way that it's looking straight at the camera. Thank you very much for Ray Perkis for sending that in. And a very similar photo, different animal. We've got a little fox cub, and those eyes are looking straight into our heart. Love that picture in the buttercups. And this one, well, it's maybe not quite so stunning. It's not looking right at us, but I think it's rather gorgeous as well. Tawny Owl by Samantha Batty, Tawny Owl chick. Thank you very much. Keep sending them in. We love getting them to any of our socials and our website as well. But at the heart of Springwatch, as usual, we have our live cameras on the nests, and our teams have been working extremely hard. They've been laying out 20 kilometres of cables, putting out 30 live cameras to bring us a fabulous variety of nests. These are some of them. Take a look.
Yeah, look at that. Very busy indeed. Lots of activity you can see there. But before we delve into all of those nests, I tell you what, let's take a look at that sunny one down in the right-hand corner. It's an oyster catcher. If you were watching our series last year, you'll know that we had one of these nests out on the beach, quite close to where we are. We followed that all the way through. This bird is obviously diligently sitting, presumably on 2 eggs, that typical clutch size. What a striking image there.
I love
white
that.
and blue.
It's a very pleasing nest, that, isn't it? I like it very much.
Sensational stuff, but it's not just about oyster catchers. We've been watching those other nests already. This one, I think, will prove to be a favourite. This is a nest full of 5 chiffchaffs. It's located quite close to the ground in a gorse bush, and the adults are very busy. They're feeding them on a diet of insects, many visits. Oh my goodness, here we go. Straight in at the top end of the business. From the ridiculous to the sublime, it's our goshawk nest with 2 young this year, and the female in adult plumage. But we mustn't forget the little things. Look at that gorgeous black cap. And here the male comes in with a cranefly. Who's going to get the cranefly? It's the chick. Oh, the hidden chick sticks its head up and gets that fantastic stuff.
So as I say, we've already got some fabulous nests, and I wonder which one will provide us with the drama. That's what I love about Springwatch, is the nature writes the stories, and we'll bring them to you. Anyway, let's remind ourselves of where we are and why we've come here. Well, this is the fabulous RSPB Arne right on the coast at Poole Harbour. Lots of marine life and plenty of seabirds. Recently it became home to the spectacular and elusive white-tailed eagle. We caught glimpses of this incredible bird last year, hoping to see more of the pair this year. Arne itself is famous for its heath, a precious habitat for the Dartford warbler, who makes itself at home in the gorse. The heath is also the place where you can spot all 6 of our British reptiles, including the rare smooth snake. Now, last year in the heath, we were lucky enough to see our first ever live cuckoo chick on the watches, greedily being fed by its host parents, the meadow pipits. We enjoyed views of the fearsome goshawk, who showed its more tender side feeding its little chicks. And who can forget the gentle nightjar, who showed its more brutal side. Oh yes, you may remember it did something quite extraordinary and ate its chick alive. So as I say, those are the dramas that our nests provide us with, and it'll be interesting to see which one provides us with the drama.
The nightjar, people still talk about that. The caprimulgus cannibalism.
I know, it was extraordinary, wasn't it?
Just absolutely amazing. But of course, it's not just about the wildlife here at Arne. We'll be looking all over the UK. We've got red-throated divers in Shetland. We've got angel sharks off the Clyn Peninsula in Wales. We've got foxes in London. And I don't know if you were watching Attenborough's mammal series recently. It was just absolutely stunning sequences. My favourite was the wolverine. Well, we don't have wolverines, but we can trump Dave because we've got a dead red, grey squirrel. Not red, oh my goodness me. Oh my God, no. A dead grey squirrel, dead grey squirrel. I know what you're thinking, how can they possibly make anything out of that? Well, it's all the life that lives on the squirrel after it's died. And frankly, it gives me an amazing opportunity at the top of the very first programme to say, that's what you pay your licence fee for. Dead grey squirrels.
Well, I'm not quite sure about that. That's what you pay your licence fee for. I could think of better things.
Wait till you see it. It's fascinating.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Anyway, plenty to look forward to, but we're also bigging up the little things, looking at the tiny creatures that make up our ecosystems to all the small things that we can do collectively to help wildlife. We're basically celebrating the little things that make a big difference.
Every spring starts small, with a delicate bud, a ray of light, a quiet song, just a glimmer of hope for bigger things to come.
As warmth creeps in, as the sun shines, and intrepid travellers arrive, there's a tip in the balance, and nature's race to reproduce begins.
Buds turn to blooms. A tune turns to a chorus. And just one turns to thousands. Now, the season hums with energy.
Those memories of a quiet early spring quickly fade, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't celebrate those humble beginnings. Something small can grow to be something mighty.
And we can be mighty too, as one small deed can lead to many.
And just one person, well, they can change absolutely everything.
Don't ever underestimate what you've done for wildlife and also what you've done for people.
That's a pleasure.
Because spring is the ultimate proof that even from small beginnings, wonderful things can emerge.
It's a fabulous time of the year. It's a time of colour, renewal and birth and growth.
It is, and it's all very exciting, but we can't stand here and pretend that everything is well out in the natural world. And for that reason, we have to pull together to make a difference. And conservationists very often come up with good ideas which we can all take part in. An example, Plant life's no-mow May, or maybe no-mow summer. The idea being that you leave a patch of your lawn uncut throughout the course of May or maybe the summer, and it's allowed to grow a bit ragged. The question is, do any of these schemes actually make a difference? And I'm pleased to say the answer is yes. And if we look at it in the short term, what benefits? Well, maybe it's butterflies. And we know that many of our butterfly species are in trouble. Butterfly Conservation have done some excellent survey work. We know that last year, small tortoiseshells and ringlets had their worst ever year. But they've also done some more research which shows that by not mowing your lawn in your garden, you can see 5% more butterfly species and a 9% increase in numbers. Now, I know what you're thinking. 5% increase in species, 9% increase in numbers, that's not very much. But what about when I tell you that there are 728,000 hectares of private gardens in the UK? So if we were all no-mow maying in our gardens, it would undoubtedly be better for those butterfly species. We can make a difference. Please take part.
It just goes to show, doesn't it? If we do something collaboratively, if we all do it as a collection, then, as Chris said, it does certainly make a difference. Small things make a difference. Anyway, we've got a collaboration going on here because it's not just Chris and I wandering around in a circle on a hill. Oh, no, no. Iolo Williams is with us, and he's in the yonder distance, somewhere over there, at Corfe Castle. He's standing underneath an enchanted castle, being very enchanting himself. And I'm sure if we wave, he could probably see us. Iolo, can you see me?
Hark! Are those two peasants I see in the distance over there? Oh, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't let them into my castle. Well, throughout this week, I am going to be whizzing all over this part of the country, dashing into some of the best wildlife sites, but I start in the most dramatic of all of them. Yes, indeed, Corfe Castle, a home fit for a king. And later on, I'm going to be introducing you to avian royalty. Oh, yes.
He really has got avian royalty, and it's an extraordinary bird. All I'm going to give you a little clue: speed. That's all I'm going to say, but it really is fabulous. So we've got Iolo with us, and then we're down on the south coast, up on the west coast of Scotland. McCubbin is joining us. Great to see you, Megs.
Oh, it's so nice to be back, and I am so thrilled this year to be out on a truly Scottish adventure exploring the southwest of this amazing country. And I'm kicking it off really well because I'm live here on the Isle of Bute, and it has surpassed all my expectations, and my expectations were pretty high to begin with. There's an amazing myriad of habitats and some remarkable biodiversity too. Even within the first couple days of being here, we got treated to sights like this. Otters up on a rock, having a satisfying scratch. Oh, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? A really good way to kick off the series, and I'm excited to share more with you a little bit later on. Chris, Michaela, otter scratching on a rock.
Oh, brilliant.
What a start,
really
what a start.
Lovely. And what a start that we're all in the dry. So many years, with the very first programme of Springwatch, it's raining, which is surprising because let's face it, this spring, well, there's one word to sum it up: damp. Yes, it's been very wet and damp, and lots of you have been flooded out. You sent us in some pictures. Let's take a look at some of the pictures of wet wildlife. This is interesting because look, Chris, it's frog spawn, and it was actually obviously put during the floods in February when there was record rainfall, February the 17th. And then the floods have gone, and look, the frog spawn's there.
High and dry.
High and dry, mould on it. Don't think that's going to end up as little tadpoles, is it, unfortunately?
Sadly not.
What about this one? A wet badger, very damp wet badger. Great photograph by Stacey Woolhouse. Thank you very much for sending those in. As I say, keep sending them in. But as I say, there's been so much rain. We've had a quarter more rainfall than average. Most of it down in the south of England. Scotland, interesting enough, has had less rainfall than normal.
We know that our changing climate is undoubtedly having an impact on our natural world and many species indeed, but we equally know that that climate is having an impact on our weather. The question is, in the short term, what impact is that weather having on wildlife? Well, it's got to be having some. So let's turn again to those indicator species, the things that we can look at and see and measure immediately. And butterflies are for a case in part, the orange tip. Now, the orange tip is a species which emerges in springtime. It overwinters as a pupae, and it typically reaches its peak numbers, that's adults on the wing, like this beautiful male here, in April. But we've noticed this year, well, I certainly noticed in my garden, very few orange tips indeed. Butterfly Conservation and the Woodland Trust have been looking at their data, and I've got to say that this is inaugural data. This is only the stuff that's coming online. They're still waiting to update this. But look at the abundance here. So the figure here in yellow is 2024, and this indicates the relative abundance of orange tips, and you can see it's quite low when you contrast it to this very high peak here, which was 2022. Well, we know that this year we've had a warm, in the south of England particularly, 2.2 degrees warmer than ever before in February, our warmest February. And we know that in England and Wales, 150% more rain. So it's clear that the orange tip butterfly doesn't like the wet. Likes the warm, doesn't like the wet. The question is now, of course, what will happen next year? Did enough of these butterflies get into the air to mate, lay their eggs? Will there be enough pupae next year? That's what we've got to be looking at. But there's no doubt at all that the weather had a short-term and immediate impact on these orange tips.
As we said, the heart of Springwatch are our Nest cameras, and we don't often show you how we rig those cameras, but this year we've got an extraordinary nest and in an extraordinary place, and it's been an extraordinary effort to put the cameras on it.
That was quite extraordinary. You said it 3
was
times.
Extraordinary. I know. I like to, make the point there. And so we thought that we would film the actual effort that they went to and show it to you, so you really appreciate this.
How extraordinary it really was.
Yes, exactly.
Roughly 3 miles south of Arne stands the towering remains of Corfe Castle. Built by William the Conqueror, it's guarded Dorset's Purbeck Hills for almost 1,000 years. But now, these ancient ruins are being claimed as a palace, fit for peregrines.
So we actually heard about these peregrines last Springwatch and did a little feature on them then. But when we came to film them, it was incredibly hard to actually get shots of what was going on up there. This is not a typical peregrine's nest. This is actually the nest that ravens have built and have used over many, many years. The peregrines, they've stolen the nest of the ravens. Peregrines only really nest on ledges, and they've decided that the nice comfy raven nest makes a perfect spot for them. So this is the sort of behaviour that's been seen this spring. You can see you've got your peregrine absolutely dive-bombing this raven. It's the peregrines and the ravens in this duel where the peregrines are battering the ravens and trying to drive them away from the castle. Ravens are big predators of eggs and chicks, and the peregrines won't want them anywhere nearby. And it's their story that we're really hoping to tell.
But to do that involves fixing a very large camera 20 metres up an ancient Norman wall. It'll be raised by a specialist rope access team who are currently carrying out conservation work on the castle for the National Trust, who own the site.
In most rope access environments, there's a concept called, is something unquestionably sound, and nothing about a ruinous structure is unquestionably sound.
But of course, these guys are the experts, and without damaging the original wall, they're confident they can secure the camera in place.
Slightly concerned about how expensive the camera is. That's probably the thing I'm mostly worried about. It's in a very rugged box, so probably it'll be okay.
The owner of that rugged box is Joe Charlesworth, a specialist camera operator who's been filming birds of prey for more than 20 years.
This is all just an elaborate way of keeping the lens dried. So it looks ludicrous, but it just means that if it rains, I can close the door.
The camera will be remotely controlled and in place for 3 months.
We've got an enormously long lens to put the camera further away and worry less about the impact on the animals. I can't think of a more picturesque place to film a peregrine, really, than a ruined castle. It's pretty cool.
And even before the main cameras are in place, this picturesque location is already delivering the drama.
Yeah, peregrine, 2 of them. Oh, yes. Peregrine just sat right on the top there and just absolutely went for the raven. Oh, yeah, round here. Whoa, that's so, look at. So this is the pet, you've got the female calling now, male directly above. Oh, they're so cool. They just circle around the castle like sharks on a reef. This is a brilliant sign that they are really keen on using this castle to nest in this year. So we've got a special licence to put the camera up before they've laid any eggs. So we're not risking putting them off, we're really minimalising that disturbance.
Now it's just a case of getting the main camera in position, but it weighs 50 kilos, so that requires a strong platform.
There's a lot riding on this.
We haven't got half the fixings in, and that's...
Yeah.
And some heavy lifting.
Beauty. Pretty happy with that. It's heavy.
All that's left now is to ensure the perfect shot.
You could go slightly fractionally right, Jeff, please. A little bit more. That's worse. So slightly more. Looks pretty good.
So the cameras are in place, and we're now going to leave the peregrines to their castle. And all being well, at the end of this month, in a couple of weeks, about 3 to 4 eggs should be laid in that nest. Fingers crossed, the peregrines take to it, and we can follow the coolest nest in Springwatch history.
Sorry to be a pain, Jeff. Go right again. Fractionally right, Jeff. Tiny bit more, please.
What a bird and what a castle. I'm delighted to say that I'm coming to you live from Corfe Castle. And follow me, come over here. Just follow me. Now behind me on this castle wall, top left there, you should be able to see a bundle of twigs. That is the old raven's nest that's been taken over by the pair of peregrines. And normally at this time I'd say, right, let's go live and have a look in there. But so much has gone on that what we're going to do, we're going to spool back 2 months to the very beginning of this year's breeding season. This is Corfe Castle, lovely aerial view there. Look at that. Steam train going by, taking tourists, and the peregrine screaming there. This is the female staring down in the evening light. Beautiful birds, and their eyesight is incredible. See, 8 times better than humans. And now this is the castle, the peregrine nest you see there on the left, an old raven's nest, and the ravens have decided to nest very close by. And this is the male, a smaller bird, but a third smaller than the female, tidier looking bird as well. And they started to sort of scrape just a couple of weeks after we put the camera in. He's there making somewhere for the female to lay. Female comes in, see how much bigger she is than him. Male on the right, female on the left, and they go into this courtship where they bow their heads with their tails up. You can see also how substantial that nest is. It's an old raven nest, of course. This is the female, and at this time of year she does very little hunting. She needs to put on weight. She goes to lay her eggs, of course, and the male will do all the hunting, bringing it in for her, usually plucked before he brings it in, tearing into the food. And the ravens, well, they squabble constantly. They really don't like each other at all. And the female's not happy about something. Off she goes. The ravens have got chicks. They're early nesters. They lay their eggs in late February usually. And the castle constantly echoing to the sound of alarm calling peregrines. The most amazing thing about this site's not the fact that it's on a castle, but it's the proximity of the two nests. Now, ravens and peregrines will often nest in the same place. I've seen them on quarries, on cliffs, but usually 50 or 100 metres apart. Here, it's literally 5 metres. But there may well be an advantage to the peregrine. Let's have a look at both birds together. Now you see just how big the raven is. It's a huge crow, about the size of a buzzard, with a very powerful bill. And ravens are very vigilant, very alert, very noisy, so they can act as a kind of early warning system for the peregrine. There's no danger of competition for food because their diets are completely different. The peregrine will eat birds almost exclusively, something from about the size of a thrush to about the size of a wood pigeon, whereas the ravens, well, they're omnivores. They'll eat anything from carrion grubs, earthworms, birds' eggs, insects, virtually anything. And the peregrine, of course, will nest in old raven nests, just like this pair is doing here. So the peregrines obviously do get an advantage from nesting so close to this pair of ravens. Now, when we left the peregrines, they were gearing up for the breeding season, so let's catch up with them once more. It rained heavily this spring, as we all know, wet, cold spring, so I had to put the screen down to protect the lens on the camera, but we still caught the first egg. That's the first egg on the 2nd of April. And they lay eggs roughly every other day, every about 48 to 60 hours. And we know that by the 6th of April, she had 3 eggs in that nest. Difficult to see, but there are 3 eggs in there. So now, this is the 4th egg on the 8th of April. You can tell it's the last one, very light coloured egg. And the female incubates. You can see her treading carefully, making sure that her brood pouch, she'll have a bare patch on her chest to keep those eggs warm, nestling in there, making sure those eggs, precious eggs, are kept warm. Train going past several times every day. And the ravens, well, the raven chicks have progressed as well. They're getting quite old. They won't be long now before they fledge. 4 of them. Look at those huge beaks, and look at the mess on that nest. The whitewash, they just stick their backsides over. And the male stands guard, but he also does some of the incubating, not as much as the female. See the difference in size again. She's reluctant to give up those precious eggs, but off she goes, and the male takes over the incubation. Can hear the raven in the background still cronking away. And the raven chicks, well, they did eventually fledge, all of them. 1 left in there, looking almost like an adult. 1 or 2 feathers, tail feathers, still in pin. You can see the sheath on the base of the tail feathers there. But that final chick eventually fledged on the 8th of May, and off it goes. Now we're going to be following those peregrines all week, and believe me, there's a lot more drama to come. You do not want to miss 1 second of it. But it's time now to leave beautiful Corfe and head up to stunning Scotland and catch up with Megan McCubbin.
I am genuinely so overjoyed to be coming live to you from the Isle of Bute. It's a place I've always genuinely wanted to visit, and to be stood here in amongst all the amazing habitats and wildlife is just, I'm over the moon, I really am. And it has such an exciting array of different things to see. Of course, the Isle of Bute is situated on the west coast of Scotland. It is a beautiful landscape. You can see the Isle of Arne in the background there, with Bute on the left-hand side, Rothsea coming in there. But you have these coastal lagoons, these coastal bays, which are filled with species like seals, as well as amazing woodland too, which is brimming with bird life that we will be taking a look at later on in the series, like this gorgeous, gorgeous siskin here. But there is also lots of life to be found within Rothsea itself. And it is a really lovely little town with cuckoos. I've never heard as many cuckoos as I have on this island. But the lock system here is what I'm really excited to delve into today. It's a really dynamic landscape, but there is a reason why I'm on the shore of Loch Fad, which is right behind me now, because there is a species that makes its home in the forests neighbouring it. Now have a little listen and see if you can guess what it is. There's high pitch chirping. It's quite iconic. To give you a bit of a clue, you can hear them in flight, and it can build up in intensity when it's perched. 10 points if you got it right. It is, of course, the beautiful ospreys. Now, they didn't originally know that ospreys nested here until 2010 when the first nest was found. It was a really exciting discovery, and since that point, the population has been doing really rather well. As you'll know, ospreys spend their time over winter on the west coast of Africa, typically in Gambia and Senegal, although more recently numbers have been in Portugal and Spain as warmer climates increase, but generally west coast of Africa. And they can fly 260 miles a day, which is just astonishing, and that's thanks to satellite tracking that we know this. And they can do this entire migratory journey in just 20 flying days, covering 3,100 miles. It's really exciting. Now this is the original nest found in 2010, and if you look closely, there's a female head poking out. And so far they've fledged 19 chicks. And there is another active nest on the other side of Loch Fad, which has so far fledged 6 chicks, and that was established in 2019. Now they thought that there were only 2 active osprey nests this year until they got their eye into the woodland and looked really closely, because they found active nest number 3. It was a really exciting revelation to show how prominent the ospreys are doing on this island. See if you can spot it. It was tricky. It was a tricky one. And this osprey pair have been doing rather well. It's an underring female, and we think, it's not been confirmed, that the male may be Blue JP3, and he was rung in 2017, and he was actually hatched here on Bute himself. And you know, of course, that ospreys are very loyal to where they were hatched themselves. They come back time and time again to breed when they're sexually mature enough to do it. But of course, to put it in perspective about osprey nests, you have to really see the sheer size of it. So if I stand in this centre ring, this is a new osprey nest, one which is still being used but is yet to be fully developed. It's about just under 1 metre in diameter, and it stands off the ground at just about 6 to 18 centimetres. But then if I step out a little bit, this outer ring represents an osprey nest which could be 3 or 4 years old. And this gets, you know, a massive 3 to 4 metre diameter, as well as 2 metres in height potentially, which is taller than me. And to put it into perspective, we've got these little eggs here, and they weigh about 72 grams when they're laid. But the size of the egg compared to the nest is quite astonishing. And of course, these are so very precious. But nests at the top of trees have got to be pretty big and sturdy in order to make sure that these eggs are nice and safe. But of course, creating a nest is a lot of engineering, and it takes a team effort from both the male and the female. Now, when both ospreys attend the nest, they are constantly building, putting sticks on, but it can be added to throughout the generations. So it's not always the current pair, it can also be the pairs that have previously gone and made use of that nest. And they're able to carry sticks and things. The male typically brings them in. The female is a bit of an interior designer. She likes to lay them. And these can be as heavy, the sticks, as their body weight, which is about 1.7 kilograms. But they're not only good at carrying heavy sticks, they're also very good at catching their prey, which can also be very heavy. And this is where we're going to get a bit ambitious. We're going to head out onto Loch Fad now. Hello, Jimmy, how are you?
Hey, Megan.
Got to be careful here. Thank you very much. Because we're going to try and see osprey hunting live. Now, I can make no guarantees, but I promise I will try my best. We did see them earlier today, and this time yesterday, well, they were out and about hunting. So, fingers crossed. And, well, we'll see you a little bit later on. Wish me luck. Come on, Jimmy, let's go this way.
Good luck, Megs. I hope you find those ospreys. I've come down to what we call our production village. Not quite as picturesque as Corfe. We won't be selling postcards, but everything is working here. About 100 people. Our editors are in this block over here. Over there, we've got our canteen. Lots of good vegan food every day. In here, all of our producers in one basket. Just put super glue in the door. That's dealt with that problem. This is the hub. This is what really counts. This is where all of those cameras that we've got out are fed into. So come on in here and we can take a look at what we've got so far. You will have seen Jack here in that peregrine film and Joe Charlesworth at all. Here, look, you can see the cameras that we've got up and running. Few blue holes at the moment, and that's because we're still looking at nests, we're still rigging up those nests so that we can be bringing them to you over the next 3 weeks. But Joe, what have we got going on at the moment that will worth taking a look at?
We've got a lot of things sitting still at the moment, which I enjoy. The kestrels are what I'm looking at.
Let's take a look at those kestrels.
You can't even see any of their faces.
Well, they're huddled up.
No.
And what we can see here is then they're a second coat of down. So when kestrels first hatch, they're very white. But at this point, they've got their grey down coat, which is much thicker and is insulating them. They've been feeding furiously all day. They want to put all of that energy into growth, not thermoregulation. What else have we got, Joe? What about that nest, the siskin? Let's take a look at our siskin's nest, because that's slightly unusual. Because in the foreground there, you can see all of the fecal sacs that these chicks have produced. So unlike so many of our species where we see those taken away, the siskins have left them there. Now, we'll conjure some ideas as to why that might be, but these birds have been really active. We've been watching them. Here's the female, not as brightly coloured as the male. What's unusual about our nest is that it's in gorse, typically much higher in a tree. They are visiting not that regularly through the day, but very productively, because they are feeding on seeds, typically alder, birch or pine seeds, and these they regurgitate into the mouths of their young. And you can see the young are not far off fledging. So they're going to be leaving that nest pretty soon. Here a bit of preening. You can see those flight feathers coming through. Try and ignore all of that fecal mess in the foreground. I imagine these, look, wing flapping as well. These are going to be leaving in the next couple of days. But I did mention we've got some blue holes there, but we are filling them, Jack. What have we got that we can show people that's new?
We've got a beautiful one that's come online today, actually. We've got this barn owl nest that you can see there, and this one's really special because it's the first time we've actually done a barn owl nest in colour before. So normally, if you've watched Springwatch in the past, you'd be forgiven for thinking that barn owls are black and white, but here we can really see the beautiful colours on this one. OK, well, they've got two owls there, of course. Does that now mean that we can sex them? We can tell the female from the male by the plumage, not just the behaviour? Yeah, so we can see. What we're generally looking for is how spotty, how marked the female is on her front. And this one, she's not a particularly marked bird, but we can see that she's carrying some of those markings when she gets up. But she's currently sat on what are right now hatching chicks. We've got three chicks and 2 eggs under there at the moment. Fantastic. Well, we'll be sure to see more of those. That's fantastic. Top work, guys. In colour for the first time. Absolutely sensational stuff. We've got time for a quick look at our chiff-chaffs. Let's have a quick look at our chiff-chaffs, see what they're up to. Well, look, they're dozing. It's that time of the evening. I've got to say the sun is on its way down here and it's quite chilly. But when you look onto that screen, we've got a great array of predators. We've got our barn owl, we've got that kestrel, we've got the goshawk there somewhere. These are all big and exciting, dashing avian predators, but scale isn't important when it comes to ferocity, because we want to introduce you now to a little predator that makes a big difference in a compost heap near you.
The humble compost heap. A place of leftovers. Unwanted waste. But for some, a putrid paradise. A rich resource to be exploited. Home for invertebrates. From the depths, a mysterious creature emerges.
pseudoscorpion. It may share the pincers of its familiar cousin, but it lacks a stinging tail. When you're just 3 millimeters long, this mouldy carrot is more of a mountain than dinner table scraps. But with 8 scuttling legs, it's an obstacle this arachnid easily navigates. Its claws would typically be used to target its prey of springtails and smaller invertebrates, holding them down for the mouth parts to get to work. But luckily for the springtail, it's not lunch on the menu, it's love. As spring is the time to find a mate. But this compost heap isn't just home to amorous arachnids. Danger is lurking. The discarded case of a pupated fly. The perfect place to hide from a predator. The flies have been busy. More cases litter the landscape. But these ones are far from empty. And bizarrely, their contents may help the pseudoscorpion find a mate, if it's prepared to wait. It isn't long before a life form emerges into its brave new world. This bluebottle has been pupating for around 2 weeks. It pulsates, pumping hemolymph into its newly formed face. Its exoskeleton is formed by plates, and the plates are yet to set in place, allowing it to ease and squeeze out in its adult form. Now it must wait for its wings to stiffen in preparation for its first flight. For the pseudoscorpion, this presents an opportunity. Having not found a mate, and with predators watching from the shadows, maybe it's time for a change of scene. These pincers aren't just useful for grabbing prey, they can be used to hitch a ride in what is known as foracy behaviour. The fly is much more mobile, being able to cover relatively large distances much faster than the pseudoscorpion by itself. But where will it land? This heap of grass will do. For the pseudoscorpion, pastures new. And by the looks of things, plenty of potential mates.
Amazing animals, pseudoscorpions, and of the 27 species here in the UK, 12 of them are common and are probably in your compost pile as I speak now. Now, earlier I introduced you to a pair of peregrines nesting here at Corfe Castle. But not the only birds dependent on buildings. The village behind me here plays host to 30 pairs of swifts as they arrive back from Africa to breed every spring. Now, you know me, I like a swift, so a couple of nights ago, I popped down to have a look at them. The light is just starting to go, and the old houses here at Corfe Castle village provide ideal nest sites for swifts, and they should be arriving back to roost any second now. I've got a special affinity for swifts because they were my granny's favourite bird, and she always used to say when she saw and heard of first swifts, summer had finally arrived. Here they come. They're starting to gather now. When you look up at them in the sky, they look black, but they're not actually. They're kind of a dark chocolatey brown with a pale bib under here. And, oh, look at that. They're real masters of the air, because in level flight, they can reach speeds of up to 70 miles an hour. It's an incredible speed for the bird. And the reason this village is so good for them is because these old houses have got little holes under the tiles and in the eaves, and that is where they nest. You see them coming, zipping in and then into the holes in those tiles. There goes one now. When they leave here in late summer, they go all the way down to Central Africa and then come all the way back the following spring. And in that time, they don't land at all. That means that they eat, they sleep, and they even mate on the wing. Towards the end of the evening, you get some birds, they come down and they just bang into the tiles, bang into where they think there's a hole, find out if it's occupied or not. And these will be young birds. These will be 12 months old. They don't breed in their first year, but they're just kind of mapping out where the potential nest sites are for when they come back the following year. And the locals call these the bangers. It's been a real joy watching and listening to flocks of swifts on a warm evening. I saw a lot of this when I was a young lad. And growing up, swifts were common in a lot of the towns and villages in mid-Wales as well, but they've declined, and they've declined for a variety of reasons. But more than anything, people have got fussy. People have blocked up holes in the tiles, in the eaves. They've blocked off the swift nests. And that's what makes villages like this so important to the future of this species. Yes, undoubtedly swifts have declined, but we can all play a part in trying to get them back. We can erect swift boxes, swift nesting bricks and swift tiles. Certainly every new build should have those as part of it. But it's not just lack of nest sites, it's also lack of insects. And the BTO are very concerned about changing weather patterns, meaning that there are fewer aerial insects at a time when the swifts really need them to feed their chicks. And chick survival has plummeted. And an excellent citizen science project carried out by the Kent Wildlife Trust and Bug Life, looking at dead insects on number plates throughout the UK, has discovered that in the last 20 years, there's been a tragic 78% decline. But, Michaela, of course, we can all do a lot more to help insects and therefore to help birds just like the swift.
Iolo, I just find that statistic so scary, 78% decline. And of course, that doesn't just affect swifts, it's swallows, house martins, garden birds like blue tits, and the list goes on and on. So what can we do? Well, there is something that we can do, and if we do it collectively, it will make a difference. We can stop using chemicals, especially insecticides, in our gardens. So we can do our bit. Look for alternatives, or simply embrace the weeds. Now, if you're a regular viewer of Springwatch, you will know that traditionally we featured blue tits nesting. But have you noticed that since 2020, they haven't been around on Springwatch. Well, I'm glad to say that that's all going to change because they're back. This year they're making an appearance, and here they are. We've got live cameras on a nest. It's interesting, isn't it, though? The reason they've been absent is because in recent years they've already fledged by the time we go live, and it seems that they're nesting around 2 weeks earlier than they did 20 years ago. A sign that spring is shifting. But as I say, delighted to have them back. Let's take a close look at them. There were 8 chicks that hatched on the 20th of May, so today that would make them about 6 days old. Both parents were caring for the brood, but if we look at the wing feathers, our beady-eyed researchers noticed that they're probably about a year old, so these two, highly likely that they're first-time parents. They do seem a little bit inexperienced, although they're feeding their chicks. Look what happens when they brood the chicks. Parent bird, the adult, gets on, leaving a couple of the chicks out. You can see how tiny they are, and they'll lose heat very quickly. That can be very dangerous for these chicks. One of them tries to squeeze back under the feathers to keep warm. One of them's still out. And I'm afraid that that was a big mistake for those chicks because Saturday at 1:17, one of them stopped moving and it was a dead chick. One of the chicks had gone. The adult, you can see it's got it in its mouth. It keeps flying up to the entrance, trying to take it out, knocks at seeding. Almost looks like it doesn't quite know what to do with it. And it took 1 hour and 10 minutes to remove that dead chick from the nest. So 7 chicks remained. Parents still came in and fed all those hungry mouths. Not successfully for one of them, though. I'm afraid Sunday at 8:46, another one died. A bit more efficiently, it was taken out of the nest. So that left 6 of them. So as I say, these parents, possibly not experienced parents, and although they are feeding, there's a lot of mouths still left to feed, but that's why they have such big clutches. It's highly likely that a few of those chicks would have died, and 2 of them have gone already, leaving 6. We're going to keep a close eye to see what happens to them now. But as I say, great to have them back. So many of you have got them in your garden. They are indeed a very familiar garden bird. But Megan is up on the Isle of Bute, looking for a bird that, well, let's face it, is unlikely to be a garden visitor unless you have your own lake.
Yeah, exactly, Michaela. Or unless you are a resident here at the Isle of Bute, in which case I'd imagine you may have osprey, if not on your garden list, pretty close to it. Now, very sadly, we've been looking around and, well, I'm really sorry, there are no ospreys here at the moment, which is, well, pretty sad. But where are we? Wow, I'm in the middle of Loch Fad. Here is this loch here. It's a freshwater loch. There are 5 altogether on the Isle of Bute. I'm situated right in the middle here. And then we've got Kirk Dam, which is up by the north. And because these are slightly separated water bodies, we didn't want to miss out on any osprey action. So we left our wildlife camera operator, Steve Phillips, with his long lens camera, hoping that he might have something. Steve, have you got any better luck than I've got? Oh, well, it's a beautiful landscape, but no osprey. Okay, well, sometimes you've got to try these things and they don't always work. And very sadly, it's kind of one of those cases of you should have been here yesterday sort of thing, because this is the amazing scenes that we have seen of ospreys hunting on these loch systems. Look at this osprey circling. That dive is just gorgeous. They're very visual hunters. They've got fantastic eyesight and they're able to pinpoint a fish, put their wings back, their talons out, and they lock on and impact the water. They're very opportunistic. They'll go for brown trout, salmon, pike, whatever they can see, and they can lift it with great ease. But they have an amazing adaptation. Now look carefully at what it does with its feet, because it flips this fish, and that's all to do with aerodynamics being better in the air. And it's because it's got zygodactyl feet. It's a great word, isn't it? Zygodactyl. They've got these spinules on their feet. It acts like Velcro. So fish are pretty slippery, aren't they? I mean, they're really tricky to grip hold of. But for an osprey with Velcro feet, it can just grip perfectly, and off it flies to the nest. And whilst at the moment the ospreys here on the Isle of Bute are sitting on eggs, not chicks, the males still have a lot of work to do to feed their partner and prepare, because they never know when a chick is going to hatch. Now in 2019 in Loch Garten, got this amazing footage of these really young chicks being fed so delicately by the male and the female, and you can see them really carefully plucking it out. And hopefully within the space of just a couple of weeks, that will be the signs here over on Loch Fad. In fact, not a couple of weeks, even just within the next couple of days, we could get young chicks. And what's really exciting about this place in particular is that they think, the Bute Conservation Trusts believe, that ospreys nesting on the island here are the only nesting ospreys on islands anywhere in Scotland. And we know that 50% of the global population really like islands, so it's a really critical population. Now it's time to take a breather, a little bit of a relax. It's the moment we all love and we all have missed so much. It's our first mindfulness moment of the series as we head over to Brownsea Island.
Bit of tufty bliss there, tufty bliss. But we're running out of time, just time to show you some of the things that people have sent in. We had this fantastic photograph of a beetle taken by Graham Hall, but look what's hitched a ride. It's a pseudoscorpion, and you remember at the top of the programme I mentioned foresty. Well, this is the ability of an animal to hitch a ride on another one without being a parasite. It's a phoretic,
isn't it?
a phoretic organism.
I love that. And look at this. This is a photo that I bet isn't in many people's family albums because it's slow worms mating. You've got the male clasping the female during mating. That's a great photo to end on, isn't it? We'll be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And then Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Thursday, we're not with you. Friday, we're back at 7:30. It's all a bit complicated the first week. Then the second and third week, Monday to Thursday at 8 o'clock. So what have we got coming up tomorrow? Well, we've got frolicking badgers. Oh, yes, we've got some manic mustelid. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? Just another manic mustelid.
And I'll be learning about a relatively new discovery to Bute, a really secretive mammal, the red squirrel.
And I'm going to be looking at nightjars living in the most unexpected of places.
We'll be back, as Michaela says, at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Do remember, though, that all of our Nest cameras are available for you to look at on iPlayer, starting at 7 and going on until 10 in the evening. So you can wake up with the watches. What a treat that will be. 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, set your alarm clock. We'll see you at 8. Good night.
Bye-bye.
You can explore some of our amazing and different species and the diverse habitats in which they live by ordering the Open University's free poster. To get your copy, call 0300 303 2465 or go to bbc.co.uk/Springwatch and then follow the links to the Open University.